to start with the Mula Mantra. So, Om Shri Narayana Parama Guruve Namaha. Today we have with us a fantastic speaker. He's a father. He's asked us to refer to him as Father George, which I must admit, growing in a convent, we had no fathers. So thank you for letting me know how we should refer to you. The talk is Sri Narayana Guru for our times and our lives. Father Professor George Thadathil, STB, is presently the principal of Salesian College, Sonara Siliguri in Darjeeling, affiliated to North Bengal University. He completed his doctorate from the School of Religion and Philosophy, University of Madras, making a study on Sri Narayana Guru movement in Kerala. He was a junior fellow, Indian Council of Philosophical Research during the period 1998 to 2000. The head of the Department of Philosophy in the college where he works during 2000 to 2009. He has co-edited the work Communities and Identity Consciousness, South Indian Trajectories, which is a Madras University publication brought out in 2004, which is based on his research on community transitions in the last century. Also the author of Cultural Identity in Nepali Language and Literature, a Salesian College Sonara publication, came out the following year, 2005, and edited Subaltern Perspectives, Philosophizing in Context and Asian Trading Corporation Bangalore publication in 2005 also. He is the author of Vision from the Margin, a study of the Sri Narayana Guru movement in the literature of Nitya Chaitanya Yati, brought out 2007. And in addition to this, he has co-edited Sahitya Academy publication, Cultural Linguistic Transitions in the Nepali Speech Community of Darjeeling 2008, and co-authored Tista on the Run in 2016. His latest publication is The Transformative Power of the One World Vision of Sri Narayana Guru in India and Civilizational Futures, Backwaters Collective on Metaphysics and Politics, second volume, edited by Vinay Lal of Oxford University Publication 2019. It gives us great pleasure to invite you, Father George, to speak to us. We are looking forward to this. Thank you so much for joining us. You are currently on mute, Father. So could you unmute yourself? And I hand over to you.
Thank you, Yumna, for your kind words. Am I audible and is this volume okay?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to Jija Madam for tracing me out and inviting me to this very family kind of weekly reunion. From the way you all were chatting up, that itself would put someone who is an outsider to feel that he or she is straight away an insider, as if it is the sitting room chat and the tea is almost being served, or at least one can hear the rattling of the cups, if not the boiling teapot somewhere at the background. And I hope all of you have had your little bit of a midday tea and are relaxed, even as I am. This morning, as we did our usual morning prayer, I have a community of small young college students in this lockdown with me out here. So I told them about my own research 20 years ago. And I had one sitting next to me who is a researcher right now starting in Don Bosco University, Shillong, in Guwahati, that, you know, in your research years, you are uncertain as to what you do and how it will be perceived, how it will be received, whether you are doing the right thing. And some people coming and telling you, "Are you Catholic priest? Why on earth are you wasting time on, you know, something not which is related to Bible and, you know, promotion of what you are called to be doing," and things like that, you know. And then I was telling them, you see how you never know the real effect and the purpose and the meaningfulness of what you do in the short term all the time. And, you know, and have had beautiful experiences, whether it was addressing groups on Christmas vacation, gathering that used to happen with Mani Narayana Prasad in Narayana Gurukula Foundation in Varkala, or, you know, being invited to the Shankaracharya University in Kaladi by philosophers, or most recently with the Backwaters Collective, project of which Anish and Adina in Bombay and Robi in US have, you know, spearheaded. And that's how it has always been a pleasure to reconnect. And in fact, I shouldn't even be saying reconnected, but to be on the flow with what was the life trajectory that brought me to study this particular Guru movement and entering into a whole world thereby. I am always reminded, and whenever I look at the book of mine, which is here in front of me at my table, and or doing the kind of work that I do of talking to students or doing my own classes, how life takes you from one stage to another. And that's one of the reasons I thought that I would title this a little bit in terms of the relevance of the Guru, our lives and our times. I go on to sharing my screen with these few thank you words to each and every one of you who are sparing your time in these busy times to to be together. Uh, just give me a minute. I hope you can see. What I should be doing is I should go to share screen from the beginning. And can you all see the screen, please?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. So what I will try to do in the coming maybe half an hour or 35 minutes, is that okay, Madam Jija?
Yes, that's fine.
And then maybe if there are some questions or we could discuss, or if need be. I have some 30 odd slides prepared for various reasons before, and I always redesign it a little bit for the occasion. So I am trying to basically share with you what is the angle with which I came to study Narayana Guru, and what in a way has been my finding, or what has kept me at it, publishing papers or being making presentations in conferences, and seeing that what we are and where we are, we cannot but go back to a figure, a persona, and truly an avatar, in the sense of one who has come into the vision, into the perspective, into the world of ours. Coming from the tradition I come, I had in a way no difficulty. Here is a new saint. Here is a new revelation of God coming for our times. Now, how is it being perceived? How are we responding to it? This is my concern. And how could we, those of us who are in the know, either because one is born into the family or one has been associated with the family through marriage or through learning, or by simple eagerness to know. And having known, how do we take this forward, and why we should be spending time on it? This is basically the reason why I put it as the subtitle, an exposition of his relevance in these divisive times. Now, let me say a word. When we know right now as we are sitting, how police are tracking down on the protesters in Hong Kong, how maybe other George Floyds are being, are being throttled, or what is happening in the Amazon in Brazil. How the indigenous people now are saying, this morning I read, because we have our own fathers working there, that during the COVID time, the deforestation has not stopped. Compared to last April, now 64% it has increased. And these indigenous people whose, immune systems are of a different order are being imported the COVID. And we know what has happened in the tribal lands of our own country, how the resources of the mines and the war for it, and the kind of, Salva Judum, there's someone from Raipur, I was there in Jagdalpur, in all those places. So, this is a replication. Our times are, as always in a way, but we are seeing in our times this divisiveness, this, disseminating or percolating or creating the kind of disruption in our world. How do we respond? And how does Narayana Guru offer us a path. This is my the starting point. Now, when I did my research, mind you, I am looking at theoretical studies. So why I have used this word as my starting point, as you know, in M.S. Srinivas was the one who coined this word Sanskritization. That India is a conglomeration of communities, and K.S. Singh's study on the linguistic groups within India would identify 6,435 communities. Each community having its own, let's say, nuance of a language, an identity, an ethnicity kind of thing. So uh, then came, some are on the higher rungs, some are on the lower rungs, some are aspiring to move upwards. And that process of moving upwards, as a sociologist or an anthropologist, they said, they came up with this idea, that this aspiration to go higher, and that was coined as the Sanskritization, that people move from margins to, a higher rung, or the desire to go become recognized, acknowledged. So it's a search for upward mobility, and it's always an imitation of those who are higher up. Now, I was trying to say, wait, ought we not to take a second look at this kind of theorizing of the social process? So this is the angle from where I am coming. Though I was from philosophy background, I was doing it in the School of Religion and Social Sciences. So my guide and my own colleagues, we were 8 of us every 2 months coming together with our own, research, finding, reading, etc., and sharing. And I was told, now, how do you ground? Don't go up into philosophy. We all know that the ideals are fantastic. But how have these ideals affected and affected and changed society? So you do a research on social transformation. How did Narayana Guru transform society? What was the contribution of the philosophical part, the religious part, the social work, the movement that is spearheaded, kind of thing. So you see, so this theory, if it is an hegemonic appropriation of the dissent and resistance of the victimized by the dominant, then that is a false theory. This was something that I exposed in my work. Now, and if we are looking at what happened from these umpteen communities across country, I'm just using, one community in one location within India, let's say as a case study. One could replicate and look at what has happened in Chhattisgarh or what has happened in Gujarat, if we look at the kind of, aspirational changes and social transformations that we have witnessed in the last 200 to 300 years in India. And the concern today of what is happening to that process of transformation that has happened. This is the placing even today of this talk. So if you're looking at from their point of view, where they're trying to imitate or they were trying to challenge, whether you're trying to wear, let's say, the sacred thread, someone looking from top will say, oh, you see, they're trying to imitate us. Someone from below would say, we are trying to challenge their position, or trying to say, is it only somebody only who has ordained that only some can wear it or some cannot, or only some can pray in this place or some only others cannot pray. All these kind of, so it is where you look determines how you see kind of a positional part of the theorizing process. So are the marginalized being in this process co-opted in that way of theorizing at one time, in the way in which when it happened, it was being resisted or it was being attempted to be co-opted, whether it was during the Satyagraha movement or whether it was Vaikam Satyagraha time or whether it was during the time of Tika Madhavan or whether it is in the time of Shanga, all these. So are these marginalized being co-opted and what is happening today? So when I was doing my research, I was there living with Guru Nitya Chaitanya in Fernhill, and I know those days there were efforts of him being made as the leader of Kerala. And he himself, I remember telling to our small group like this sitting, for the evening prayer, and every evening he would give a talk. I'm glad that that kind of tradition is being replicated across the country, and as someone just before this started saying, we also do this in Dubai kind of thing. So I guess, this is, and I know of places in Portland, Oregon, of in Bainbridge, in Washington, state. Um, this similar things happening. So, yeah, but are these attempts being co-opted, or are there attempts, whether it is a state-sponsored Narayana Guru conference in Delhi, or it is the Narayana Guru Samiti that gathers together, or we, when I say this we, so here is the, this is the context of where I start. We have a reason, if we want to be original too, and truly follower of Narayana Guru, from whatever background we come, we are looking at a kind of future and a kind of present where we believe we are all insiders and there are no outsiders. As nicely, Jija, you also told me, yes, we are all one. It is true, and we need to be constantly reminded of that the way we go along. So this is the, I just said, so there's a problem with this Sanskritization as a theory, because of this, it is an appropriation device of the dominant to contain the margins rather than it being just an imitative process of the weak. If mobility in sociocultural theory is linked with newly emerging aspirations coming in the way of encountering modernity, we should say every community has been in the process of aping or imitating, in that sense, the Sanskritizing or not. One could say one has been Europeanizing, one has been Westernizing, one has been, modernizing. And what's wrong with that kind of thing? And then the point is, everyone, are they given a space to equally get it? So is it just a cliche to hide the dominant communities or agents' aspirations to preserve the hierarchization as the norm in society? This is what I think the challenge that is coming to Sri Narayana Guru devotees or followers, or those who carry the banner of Guru in today's modern world. So it's when they did it, when, let's say, the from the Tamil upper echelons elite, where for whatever reason, due to Periyar's movement and etc., Dravidian movement, had the first option to, first of all, when English school came, they had the first option. So whenever it happens, was upgrading for them or for, let's say, the elite, let's put it, and because this is happening across the world, that was okay. Whether it is, in today's terms, the benefits of industrialization was okay at that time, now it is not okay. Now, so when someone else does, it becomes suspicious. So this kind of a, a centralization, which has reached today to, in another talk the other day, I was saying, we are in what is known as global fascist era. Global fascism is what is emerging. It's no more, even the prime ministers and presidents of countries have become puppets. So there is a kind of wealth accumulation, what Shoshana Zuboff of Stanford, of Harvard University calls it as the surveillance capitalism, into which we are, being sucked into. So there, some are getting eliminated. And, so this whole attempt, of what happened with Narayana Guru in Kerala, and what is this was that the margins were seeking to reintroduce equality as the organizational principle in society, to retain the age-old democratic values and fabric of society, and resist the attempts to co-opt as well as push them further to the margins. So this is what happened, is my finding. And if we are called to, and if we ought to be spreading this message and carrying this message in whatever way, then this is the challenge before us, is the kind of submission. Now I go to my, the second part. Here, again, I'm just trying to give you a gist of what did I do in terms of this research. It's there in the book, of course, but then, it's like, I would like to share with you. When I say that Narayana Guru centered a group of people, or Narayana Guru brought in a way of wherever you are structured in society, you can see yourself, and the direction in which you should be looking is that which brings you to the center, not at the periphery. Now, center not in the sense of trying to sit on someone, to dominate someone, but center as the core from which everything disseminates. And this process of trying to tell those who feel or those who are at the peripheries, come, you are welcome, you have a place. And this is what we do when we feed someone, when we care for the sick. This is what we do when we invite someone we know is under distress and just may have to listen to some good words. So how did it happen in the case of the movement that I studied? So I will do three things here. I'll give you in just the positioning of the Sri Narayana Guru movement, who were the main actors on and what was their vision. I mean, things in a way known to you, but I'm just sharing with you how it impacted me and how I shared it in my study. So first, the positioning of Narayana Guru movement. So let us look at it this way, that we have the social democracy that Ambedkar spoke about. And it happens when communities attain a recognition and an equal status with and within the wider network of communities. So that was Ambedkar's own journey, of reaching to be the framer of the Constitution from a position where he didn't have the equal seating possibility in his school classroom where he was born and brought up. Thanks to the generosity and let's say the divine intervention, he did. And I was talking to the head of the Department of History when I was on my sabbatical in the US, in Stanford University, and Aishwarya Kumar was there, and he's an expert on Ambedkar, and he said, no undergraduate student ever wrote an essay of the caliber that Ambedkar wrote in Columbia University when he was an undergraduate student. And of course, he was therefore trying to say that what Indian intellectuals ought to be doing is to engage with his thought if India needs to move forward and not get stuck with the freedom that Gandhi brought us. And, and even that, what has been the intellectuals' engagement. And this was the kind of invitation and the challenge that he was throwing out. So this is, one, when we are trying to say why we go back as thinking people, as persons with some responsibility to guide research or to invite and engage people into research. So our task is to look how, from a socio-philosophical point of view, communities undergo transitions. And we are just trying to do this, focusing on the community and the context within which Sri Narayana Guru emerged in Kerala. So he definitely was a prominent presence. I mean, there was a prominent presence of significant charismatic individuals, around him and through him and with him. The lasting institutions of social, religious, and economic, cultural nature that they established or were begun in their names. So individuals, institutions, and the literary contributions. These were the three things that I looked into. So what were the motivational factors behind these individuals, institutions, and what led to these literary contributions? And there, the philosophical vision or the worldview that emerges or emanates from these interventions of individuals in society. So this provided a momentum to society. And that's how the margin comes to the center. So who are the players on the field? Let's look at the visionary and the socially committed religious sage that the person of Narayana Guru was. My dear friends, when I look at this picture that you are seeing, I remember as a 7 or 8 year old, for first time going with my father to our village market and entering a shop and seeing this picture. And the first time that I see the picture comes back to me every time. So, the last chapter by Shivanand, I think, in this India and Civilizational Futures, which spearheaded by Anish and Dina and Robi, released and edited by Vinela, has got, the iconography around Narayana Guru. Very beautiful way of looking at it. Just like words, when you hear, touch you, the visual definitely impact us. Um, Now, I didn't have the pictures of all these. I am glad that Shaji is putting all this together in his website. But you see, we have, for example, Dr. Palpu, the first person to become a doctor from entire community and from Trivandrum, and we know that. We have Sahodar Nayappan, we have C. Keshavan, we have T.K. Madhavan, and we have, of course, the right hand and the hero, the poet Kumar Nashan. So it's one person, and around it's a group of them. It's like at the right time, the right people coming to the forefront. I always remember Naraj Guru's one famous statement that nothing can prevent vacuum from being filled. That nature abhors vacuum, or that when it is time for a bud to sprout forth, it just cannot be stopped. That's the imagery that comes to me. I could take you into the details. I'm not doing that, but we know how. Now, in and through these persons at that time, I'm trying to look at how I am summarizing the social transformation that occurred, from the second half of 19th century to the early part of 20th century, 1903, from the time of the Aruvipuram Pradishta to the formation of the various movements, the SNDP, so you have, in 1903 at Aruvipuram, and we have in Varkala in 1915, and then we have the Gurukula Foundation starting from 23 with Naraj Guru in Ooty. And the 48, the Dharma Paripalana Yogam, and then we have the SNT Trust. All those individuals, small organizations, institutions, and these had massive impact because many individuals, just like today, we all are sitting and listening, and we are trying to do at our best, and hundreds of groups, let's say, are doing this. So we can't always only go by as if the divisive forces that we see highlighted in the media as the only thing that is controlling the world or taking the world forward. So this is the trust with which we do what we think we can do. So our concern in that sense is my concern in the work was not to study everything. I just took the Narayana Gurukula Foundation, the history of Gurukula Foundation, as carrying forward the vision of Narayana Guru, how that operated behind the socio-political interventions for the uplift of the people. This particular group, from Narayana Guru to Naraj Guru to Nitya to. So his lifetime enterprise was to spread the message of his Guru. That is referring to whether it is Naraj Guru or even I should say Nitya and today Muni Narayana Prasad. So we find that you see Narayana Guru's writings, original, whether it is in Sanskrit, like the Darshanamala, or in Atmavadesha Shadagam, or the little writings in Tamil, Sanskrit, Malayalam, and Tamil, all put together, you would have maybe something like 250 to 300 pages, maybe, or 60 different works. And we have 12 books when it comes to Naraj Guru, who does his doctorate in Sorbonne, and in his book that I have here, I don't know if you can see Narayana Guru's life and teachings of Narayana Guru. He has brought together and how he wrote, and from his writings, how Romain Rolland comes to know, etc., and how the foreign disciples start. So through the setting up of the Gurukula in India and abroad, and through his disciples, both foreign and Indian, I have, for example, an American who has who burnt his American passport as a 17-year-old, and he still lives in Darjeeling. We work together. He is running a small school. So, and as I said, Scott Tatesworth, I saw some message from him the other day in the group that you are circulating, or as I said, Nancy in Bainbridge. So there were a whole lot of people who from different walks and different parts of the world that came, or like Toyarkov in Peria in Kerala, who died there, having married and settled down there, having had. So We have a whole big trajectory. So this was my kind of an intent to put together what happened to Narayana Gurukula Foundation, how it started and where it is going. So the trajectory continues to this day across the world and keeps growing by the day. And the right-wing forces marginalize it precisely because of its potential to be a threat, an agent to withstand easy co-optation. So this is what I see. It's my reading of the socio-political churning that is happening. And here is where I see the relevance of Narayana Guru. If someone has to put sense, knock sense, let us put it that way. Something that I gave a couple of years ago, 125th anniversary of the Brahma Samaj in Calcutta. And I told them how I wish that the ideology of Brahma Samaj had been the leading light for our political vision for modern India, and not what happened in Nagpur and from where now it is sorry to say. I mean, if you go back to the writings of Nehru, the weekly talks that you would give to all the chief ministers every fortnight, and twice he has mentioned what is the good force in India and what are the evil forces in India. And where that itself can make you understand why some people would like to rewrite the entire history of modern India as if Nehru and his era never existed. And you already have textbooks of that nature circulating. It's like, I mean, this is nothing new, my dear friends. If you go back to the 6th century, I am teaching Kalidasa as Abhijnana Shakuntala, and you go through the literary text, and the Kalidasa who writes the first 3-4 chapters is not the same person one would feel one who is writing the 6th and 7th. So because the political stage has changed, and there's a new ideology being spread through the very same text, which is the most liberating thing one would feel, and the most romantic and the most freedom-loving thing that is in the first part of the book. So this kind of co-optation has always happened. So you find Sanskrit texts where Buddha is being maligned, my dear friends. And these texts are reached through from Potala Palace, taken by Beijing University, which had connections with Harvard University, and Harvard University scholar wrote that Alternative Hinduism, Wendy Doniger, and you know what happened to her. You Google and find out. You can see how that book was burned in India. So we have historical records, and this is, so here is where I see, and this is what I am taking you to forward to. So it's an amazing phenomenon. A person like Nitya Yadinedi having the audacity to say that if you have such intentions in coming to meet me, then you have come to the wrong place, you can get lost. These were the words that he told us that I left off to saying, because everyone needs, some prominent figure to say, we are this community or we are this religion. And so you have everyone. But was that the kind of cooptation? Was that the route that Narayana Guru showed? So if any organizational person or any individual from whatever background we may come, we are being challenged to open the borders, to say that we can live without borders. We can live without, the narrow conceptions of human restrictions that is put on inevitably by the social forces. And these social forces ought to be challenged, critiqued by right-thinking people. And when that doesn't happen, when society deteriorates, we have the prophets, whether it is the Jewish tradition or the saints, whether it's the Catholic tradition, or you have, for example, Narayana Guru or the avatars happening, let's say, in the Indian cultural ethos, whether it is a Ashoka or a Buddha or a Gandhi or a Narayana Guru or an Ambedkar emerges to bring us to rightful thinking. So the most prominent Indian disciple of Nagaraj Guru, who in turn had disciples also from different parts, is and who wrote in Malayalam. So the 12 books of Nagaraj Guru and Nitya Yadinedi's 100 books and or nearly 1,000 articles. So this was the corpus that I read in order to create the kind of the book or the research that I did. So you have individuals with a vision, with a mystical experience. This mystical experience gives rise to literary expressions. The literary expressions, when they are disseminated in a community or in a society, that society undergoes transition. So there's a, and in, so you find, In that sense, Nitya Dinyadi is a, one would say, more bookish, or he, in comparison to, let's say, Sri Narayana Guru, who went around, doing, because at that time that was what was needed. And the Kerala society, having become literate, he is challenging them weekly, writing in the newspapers, through his columns and through his pamphlets. And every week a book was coming out with a whole group of people sitting around, his talks being translated and being printed into books. So this kind of a dissemination has had its impact on Kerala society and even beyond. So could the production of literature reflect the writer's awareness of the socio-economic and political-cultural changes and the direction the tradition in question and the society should take? This is the kind of poser that I was making. So continuing, my dear friends, so where do we situate, the vision of these protagonists of the movement called Sri Narayana Guru movement? So it's a cumulative treatment of the three generations of Guru disciple turned Gurus, Sri Narayana Guru, Naraj Guru, Nitya Dinyadi, and the location of this within the philosophical map. Let me run through this quickly. I do it in 4 ways: the historical scheme, the academic scheme, and the ideological scheme. So historically looking, we have, Sri Narayana Guru tradition offers an internal critique to the received wisdom, how Varna Dharma should be in a way replaced by Narayana Dharma. And I think, for our social activists and social transformers, or, this is what has happened, and they have done it. So, an intellectual revolution is not performed by simply confronting one philosophy with another. It is not just the ideas that require to be confronted, but the social forces behind them. This is what Sri Narayana Guru achieved. He is not only writing beautiful poems or creating a beautiful Atmavidesha Satakam, but also saying how that will apply to society. So, the group of traditionalists or Sanskritists, when you look at in terms of locating what Narayana Guru did, I have given 3 options. You have the kind of traditionalists who say, you want to do Indian philosophy, it can only be done by studying Sanskrit and the Sanskrit texts and continuing in that orthodox parampara. Or you have the others who are anglicized philosophers who apply the Western philosophical categories to critique and to embellish, let's say, the Indian philosophical traditions. And you have the third group who tries indigenously to rationalize traditional categories and apply them to reading developments in the human social sciences. It is in the third, in a way, he did not know or speak or, let's say, English, though he had on his Kirk, even a foreign disciple during Narayana Guru's own time. But what I'm trying to say, there's a rationality, the way if we go to dissect the dialogues that he does, whether it is with a Christian priest or a pastor who is coming, or with the intra-group thing, or what happens in Talacheri, umpteen instances, how he critiques, how he challenges the presumptions and the presuppositions with which those who come to talk to him comes, and he exposes them in their own words, but without any, kind of animosity or trying to prove that, I am one upon you kind of, the debating kind of thing. Neither that. I think this is the beauty. And this is where, I quote what Antonio Gramsci says. He has created an intellectual revolution, and this revolution is not performed by simply confronting one philosophy with another. It's not a question of saying, I am right or Shankara is wrong, or, it is Shankara and it is not Ramanuja kind of thing, or it is none of these, but it is, anti-Brahmin, etc. He is one philosophy, but it's not just the ideas that require to be confronted, but the social forces behind them. What is making one set of thinking to prevail at one particular time? And if what is prevailing in society is not okay, how are we to intervene? And this is the roadmap that he is giving, is the kind of. Now, second way of looking at this, and I put it as a kind of quantity-quality scheme. In terms of geopolitical, demographical, or juristic considerations, if we have to locate, let's say, Indian philosophy, that which is written by any Indian national of any persuasion, or even a foreign national who is studying, let's say, about Dalit philosophy or Vedanta, is an Indian philosophy specialist, or Indian nationals who may be studying about Neo-Thomism or about African philosophy. That also is coming within the, let's say, the genre of Indian philosophical output or corpus. Or we have Indian national founding an altogether new philosophical tradition. So in that way, I mean, I find it quite a little bit, so honestly say, what's the point in saying whether he's in Shankara tradition or that? Narayana Guru is Narayana Guru. Yes, definitely he's coming within the lineage of and in the tradition of he's a product of Indian civilization. He was not born in South America. He was not born in China. So we do respect the social context within which he was born and he lived, but we also say he transcended those limits within which, and that's what he was saying, I am not, and he declared it publicly too. So that's one scheme. And looking at it in terms of, again, the quality scheme, one could say, is someone looking at existential and dialectical considerations? Now, what is the role of a philosopher? Here and now, what is your message to me? What have you got to say? Existential is rooted and in and oriented toward the religious, including the spiritual, moral, aesthetic experience. Do our coming together provide us motivation to live another day better? Dialectical, are we doing it, in a critical manner, in an interdisciplinary manner? So if you are doing especially research orientation, if you are taking, is it existential? Is it dialectical? Now coming to, we could look at it in an academic way. That's the third. That I don't know how many of you know about Daya Krishna. He was a very classic. He's an Indian philosopher of the classical kind, but with very good backing in Western philosophy. So he used the Western philosophical, Hegelian dialectical methodology to in a way assess and analyze and criticize the classical Indian texts, exposing that which is not coming to the scrutiny of the rational mind. Now, Nitya Chaitanya is doing something what I call as the interpretative syncretic critique, resting on two presuppositions. One, that the cultural context of India is where a merger of East and West is already effected, and that a personal experience and conviction should precede theoretical knowledge or system building. You see, Nataraj Guru or Nitya Chaitanya, though Guru Nitya Chaitanya was for a short time in Vivekananda College in Chennai, in Mylapore area, and Dr. Natarajan, Nataraj Guru too, was almost appointed as an officer for the educational revamping in the entire state of Karnataka at one time. So, though they were called, but they did not go into this kind of professional, life. Why? Because of this. And that is the rectitude, and that's the point of continuity of what Narayana Guru did. Allow me another 5 more minutes or more, if you don't mind. So I proceed from there to the last part. I'm moving towards that. Now I come to the, how do we, another way of looking at Narayana Guru's significance and relevance even today is by positioning him vis-a-vis Gandhi and Ambedkar, two lesser towering personalities with, a whole corpus of writings, with, volumes of their collected works, etc. Now, let's just look at that point there. Gandhi loathed, disliked the people speaking of conversion, because he believed religion is to be a pre-given. I mean, in his worldview, in his way of thinking. So how can one think of, changing one's religion? This was an anathema to him. Ambedkar is coming from a totally different background, and he says, your religious belief is the most powerful choice that you can make, or any individual can make, and that defines your sense of who you are. And that is the most fundamental freedom that you have. Of course, mind you, he came from a structured position where he could not stand up, but everyone else stood on his shoulders. So definitely he will say, let me throw off the yoke. So now, the nuance in which, and this is, my dear friends, what I'm trying to say, especially to all of us intellectuals or those of us who are having any say in guiding research or as a collaborative project that we can take it up, is that, yes, how did Narayana Guru challenge without creating animosity? And how do we continue to challenge without posing a threat? Natural in a way to feel that, we have been always occupied. We had, for 300 years of Islamic rule and 300 years of British rule. And now we are, at least we can breathe. All that is fine. But are we once again breathing down the throats of those who had no voice just 300 years ago? And are we looking at a future where we are again back to structured society, where we determine where you should be positioned and what work you will do? Then have we made any mileage in the last 300 years? And we ask, then are we standing with Narayana Guru, who said, you want to learn Sanskrit to be free? Learn Sanskrit. Go to Alva Sanskrit School. You want to learn English to be free? Go and tell Natarajan, go to Europe, do your doctorate, come back and look after all our schools. And let us, create, educate, agitate, organize, and create something new. So, my dear friends, we come to the last part. What is Narayana Guru telling us and our lives? So, you see, Jija was trying to say, let's little bit get out of the usual statements. But the core remains as the core. We are one in kind, religion, and God. Whether you're man or woman, sorry, I must add that, whatever be the religion of woman, woman I always put now as WO/MAN, should become better. Don't tell caste, ask caste, think caste. Liberate yourself through education. Let me come to the corner that one day. This is the essence whether we are reading any of his works. How to attack or rectify casteism. This is my quote, by the way. Somewhere Jija was asking, do we have something new to say? This is mine. That is, no amount of material well-being would bring about genuine perception of equality from within, until and unless one feels it from within, or one felt it from within to be equal to all and second to none. Now, how do you reach there? This was the question that he was telling, whether it was to whoever he or she was, So this process is what I call as reclaiming the self. Now I go to a bit of philosophy, if you don't mind, and I'm doing it a little quickly because I think I have overshot the time. This is like, the Chadushpat, you would have heard the field of consciousness, it comes from Mundaka Upanishad. And so imagine there are 4 windows. This slide has been a little bit redesigned. Otherwise, imagine it as 4 quarters. So you have the wakeful Jagrat, you have the dream Swapna, you have the Sushupti, and you have the beyond the Turiya. The world of action, world of hopes and aspirations, the dreams, the world of residues, and the transcendence, and the world of silence, the immanence. And this, imagine you are superimposing onto those 4-fold scheme, the window, the modern Microsoft window, also you can imagine, the 4 windows. Over the Jagrat, the wakeful self, imagine you are the self, the cultural self, you the agent, you the one who is engaging with the world. And the Marx who says, look at the world, see how there is disparity growing, see what you can do in order to decimate those agents of domination and oppression, and creating the haves and the have-nots, and create the ideal world. And on the left side, you have someone like Freud coming and telling you, my dear friend, you are your subjective agency, your psychic self, not your outward alone. And no amount of your running around solving the world's problem is going to be solving the world's problem until and unless you have resolved your own problems in yourself. So you have Freud in the world of the Swapna. And we have in the 3rd quarter of this window of this Chadushpat, the Hegelian dialectical self. The war, we are at war with ourselves. Even Freud will say our unconscious all the time surfaces from this deep sleep, brings us the demons that are unresolved in us. And there is this self and the other. I am who I am because I am not the other. How do we define self? I am male because I am not female. I am female because I am not male. I am husband because I am not wife. So how do we resolve? How do we reconcile these demons of binaries and the kind of divisions that surface? How do we deal with the enemy? How do we show the other person's cheek, the one who is slapping you? How do you reconcile? And we have the 4th quarter of the world of silence, the transcendent, this is I would like to replay the also other. It's the 3rd place is I am not. I am also my other. And that is the quarter of the Turiya that Narayana Guru is taking up. Again, we can superimpose this with the cosmic external, objective socio-political world, the human internal subjective psycho-spiritual world, the intra-subjective, inter-intra-subjective religious aesthetic world, and we have the trans-subjective or the objective, philosophical, mystical, the realm of the divine. These, looking at various ways in which we can look at our own self. We can elaborate on that, but now let me put everything to conclusion by saying, so we have these 4 layers, 4 angles of looking at and making our lives meaningful. So let me put 4 conclusive statements. As social persons, we have a commitment to convey the truth to others. So thank you for inviting me, and that's what made me yes to speak to you. As an individual, each of us, we have to be ever in search of integrity and wholeness. Am I at peace at home? Am I at peace with my neighbors? Am I at peace with the wider world? As we are also collective persons, it's not only the virtual world of being in one WhatsApp group that brings us together, but we definitely are also one with the Chinese who are at our borders in a way, trying to, show who is better or who is smarter. And we are on the last, as spiritual entities, we are more than our small egos. We are that I am who I am. We are that, the Aham who is the ultimate, the Brahman. So living the truth of harmony and peace that always transcends and is ever immanent. Thank you, my dear friends. I wind up here.
Thank you very much. That was a really, I think you've taken us through the entire universe almost, it feels like, starting and going deeper and deeper and deeper. I would like to invite people to ask questions. I think you can all, you're all currently muted, but you can unmute yourself and ask Father any questions you like.
Leaving everybody as if breathless, or all are already okay with their cup of coffee?
It seems as though, oh, hang on a second. I think maybe people are having trouble unmuting. Just a second. Let me just try again.
Hi. Hi, I'm Vinod here from Mumbai.
Yes.
Mr. George, it was a very nice presentation. Before this, I never heard someone talk about Turiya. People are not aware about that stage of human. Okay, so you have wonderfully concluded with it. And I feel you are like a iron particle on a bank of an ocean attracted by a magnetic power. You have reached that stage. The Guru, you are in the hands of a Guru's hug. Okay, so Guru has opened a big treasure for us. The treasure, you can call it as knowledge, light, or extreme, whatever you. I just want to sing my poetry which I took, which I wrote yesterday. This is regarding Pyar Mohabbat. It is in Hindi, Pyar Mohabbat. All I got from inspiration from God and His writings and Gita and Upanishad. So if you don't mind, it will take only half a minute.
Please.
I'm not going to sing it because I not tuned it. So I'm just reading the poem. Pyar mohabbat bina ye jindagi apna kushi ko tukraye. Pyar mohabbat bina ye jindagi apna kushi ko tukraye. ये अंधकार में भगवान कभी हमारा नजर में नहीं आए. ये अंधकार में भगवान कभी हमारा नजर में नहीं आए. प्यार करो खुद और सबको पाओ खूब भगवान को. प्यार करो खुद और सबको पाओ खूब भगवान को. प्यार मोहब्बत बिना ये जिंदगी अपना खुशी को टुकराए. इसलिए प्यार मोहब्बत से ये जिंदगी जियो. Thank you.
Wow.
Wow. Good.
So, can you hear me?
Yep.
This is Kumar Rajapan from the US.
Hi.
Good morning, Father.
Yeah.
Very, very profound talk. But I do have some questions. Excuse
Yes,
me.
please. Yeah.
So you brought Ambedkar and Gandhiji with the Guru. And we know that Ambedkar and Gandhiji, they never saw eye to eye.
Mhm.
On the one hand, Gandhiji was a traditionalist, so to speak, while Ambedkar was a really rational person
Profound and erudite.
with a consumed by the caste system in Hinduism. And in that process, even though he was fully right in being consumed by that system, but in that process, he did not recognize many of the values that implied in the system. That is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of situation. Whereas Gandhiji, he clinged on to the Varnasrama Dharma in Hinduism, and therefore it was a backward way of justifying the caste system. Whereas when Narayana Guru came, he was not necessarily pointing at the society. His focus was on the individual. And all those individuals who came into that circle got changed. And that is how he affected the change. And it is kind of democratizing, if you will, the Hindu pantheon of gods, for example. That is where it started. And then later it goes into really profound spiritual. It crossed that religious realm and dove deep into the spiritual realm. Now, my question to you is, how can you put Gandhiji, or can you put Gandhiji and Ambedkar on the same pedestal as Narayana Guru is? Or are you trying to put that way?
Thank you, Kumar. A very perceptive observation and for the question. Let me come directly to answering the question of having given your background to arriving to the question. I am not equating in direct straight to answer to you straight. Then comes the question, what am I trying to do? I am trying to show within the philosophical thought world of India and Indian intellectuals who don't recognize Narayana Guru and do not in the intellectual academic circles speak sufficiently about his worldview, how they ought to be listening to him, because first of all, these two stalwarts warred at each other, fought with each other, never agreed eye to eye with each other. And could Narayana Guru help them even today see each other? Or Ambedkarites and Gandhiites to come together? And don't we as good Indians, if India as a civilization needs to journey forward, need to bring all these three into dialogue? That's the role. And now in the process of dialogue, who will emerge? So it's not a question of who is one. It's not a one-up-man show kind of a wrestling competition
Absolutely
that we are
not.
talking about.
Yes.
You got me.
Yeah.
But we are only saying these intellectuals, and first of all, it took very long time for Ambedkar to be acknowledged. Let us be honest. Now that at least Ambedkar is being recognized and the intellectual circles are beginning to think, probably we can only say Narayana Guru's days are still coming for the intellectual world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
One more difference what I feel is, see, if someone comes for food, so instead of giving the food, Guru has taught people how to do the fishing. Means to solve the problem, how you can enlighten yourself. That is what Guru done. That's what I feel. But Gandhiji and Ambedkar, they have worked for the people hard to solve their problem. That is what I feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
More questions, we can learn more. So please go ahead.
So in one of your slides, you say that with regard to Guru Nitya, there is a shift from social concerns to literary concerns. I'm struck by that sentence. What do you exactly mean by that? That is, if anybody who knows Guru Nitya knows that through and through he had that social concern. And every piece of work that he has written, you reflect that social concern. Maybe it is from the side of music or poetry or art, but it is the end result has to be the elevation of man and the society. So please explain. Please explain.
Thank you for the question. Now, to answer this, the angle with which that is being made is when we look at the evolution from Narayana Guru's time, from 1855 to 1928, and let's say Nataraja Guru from 1923 to 1973, and when we look at the way till 1999 of Guru Nitya and the transformation of the community where these three individuals intervened. This is my point of insertion and angle. So you find a very, a passionate, compassionate, and person who is traveling in a way recklessly from Sri Lanka to Trivandrum to Payyanur to I've been to Erimala. I don't know if you have been there, where all these and to Uti also. You find and everywhere, and Talacheri, everywhere stories of Now from that kind of an activism, we are not therefore saying that he was not a saint or he's not a sage, or we cannot limit him only to social worker, therefore, definitely not. But there's a way of expending one's life, vis-a-vis the 200 pages he writes or he dictates to others to write, to the number of places and the temples and institutions that he sets up and lives he directly connects and touches. And when we come to Nataraja Guru, and when we come to Nitya, in terms of as a scholar, I am telling you as a scholar, when you look at the output in terms of recorded materials, there seems to be a shift from actual connect with the people. Of course, the Guru Nitya, I also know, was told that if you are so much concerned, why don't you put on a mitre and go around telling you are a bishop? He was also accused, for on public forums speaking for inter-community kind of thing. So definitely, I mean, I should maybe, in the light of your comment, I should nuance my wording of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Forward. Thank you, Father George. A really profound and erudite presentation indeed, based on rigorous academic research, no doubt. We are truly swept off our feet. Many concepts familiar, but juxtaposed with concepts from other domains, also familiar. Words are familiar. You have done it so beautifully to derive new conclusions, and you have presented the whole thing from a totally different standpoint. When you started, I thought that you're just going to trace the steps, trace the lineage, but then the conclusions you have drawn are so totally, what do you say? It shakes our perspectives and understanding, at least mine. Now I'll have to go through a sit down, go through with my older, so far whatever I knew, the concepts and ideas and the understanding of philosophies, and also the spiritual concepts like Turiya and all that. And then I have to really spend time, hours on your slides if they can be spared. And then I have to, by myself, come to my own conclusions to understand what actually you had laid out for us, number one. And number two, to find out what are the ways. Yes, you have laid out some ways, what all can be done and things like that. Very interesting. But it also chugged all our intellectual treasuries, mind, to delve deep into ourselves, based on what all you have given us, the new framework, the new altered concepts, and then we have to draw our own conclusions. Two people have asked you the questions, and I'm sure many more people are also going to ask questions. I'm a novice, Father. I'm very curious, and I'm totally addicted ever since we, somebody mentioned here, I was like a fluff of iron particles, fluttering in the breeze on the seashore, and just got totally attracted and engulfed or taken over by Guru consciousness, I should say. I'm scared to say anything, utter anything, because the people who are here, I think maybe 70%, 75% are jnanis. They know Guru in and out. They know they have been with the Gurukula for 40 years and studying and teaching and things like that. So I really do not know whether I am using the right language, but it has been quite a what do you say, an experience which deserves to be studied and understood much more, to have a new look at what Guru was, in a way, what the other disciples were, and where should we, what is in the present context of the country, and also of the world, and what is happening actually in our country itself, within the Guru followers itself. We have to look at all those things, analyze all those things, and have to come to our own conclusions, is what is my feeling. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you for your observation. Kind observation.
Again, it's not necessarily within the context, firmly within the theoretical framework that you shared with us, but taking it back to your context setting of the reality of the world we live in today. Marginalized people are rightfully pushing for the center. We're seeing it. We're seeing it in the US. We're seeing it across Europe at the moment. There's constantly that pressure here in India, and then you also see, as you said, fascist rulers who, so-called either democratically elected or in a communist system, who are in a very non-libertarian, non-egalitarian way, pushing these laws like the national security law in Hong Kong that the Communist Party has just passed, or the burning of the Amazon forest that, as you said, is 64% more than last year, in the middle of the COVID crisis, while they have the highest number of COVID deaths. In the framework of all of this, I want to draw it back to where you talked about the fact that within the intellectual system, there isn't enough recognition of the median message that is being given here, that could be of value to expand the context within which we have these discussions, maybe to illuminate the way forward. How do we address that, and how can we make a difference towards making sure that the message comes out more, other than sort of contexts like this where we're all talking to each other? Because it feels like another bubble, where we're all convinced, and so we're speaking to each other, but how do you spread the word outward in a way that's meaningful, because it feels like the time is right for this message.
Thank you, Yumna. And I think you have rightly picked on from also what Madam Dija was trying to observe. So my response to this is, I see myself, different layers of responses happening. I myself, like you, though I am born in Kerala, and in fact, I left Kerala at the age of 15. And when I did research, it's the first time I went back to studying Malayalam itself for the sake of reading these texts. So, though we hear what's happening in Kerala context and what's the Kerala politics, which has not only just like the COVID response was a kind of, model for everyone else. Same way, the politics of Kerala, definitely we should take our hats off to every Malayali, let's say, and all those who are playing the political game there, because they are setting certain benchmarks. Now, at the same time, it is worrying. So when it happened from SNDP to, let's say, the time when Shankar comes onto the stage, if you know Kerala history, to what is happening from now, definitely, as Madam is saying, or we need to be worried. Now, coming to the other question of responses, so you have on the one side, Kerala-centric intra-dynamics going on. You have the Malayalis outside through Kerala Samajams and Narayana Samadhis, whether it is in Shillong, where I have been, or in Calcutta, or even here in Siliguri, where I am located. You have a lot of groups and movements. Then you have non-Malayalis, like as I said about Nancy or Scott and their own groups, promoting Guru and feeling that what some of us are doing is not radical enough, are not really following Guru. Think of that, saying of that kind of a situation. Or, and intellectuals themselves, like what Anish and Dina and people are trying to do, or Robi, something very creative. So I would only tell you that from within this group, if there are of that orientation, let's say people who are young, let's also accept the fact that after a certain age, our own take on criticism will change. It's like the famous saying that if you are under 25 and if you are not a Marxist, there is something wrong with your head. If you are over 25 and you are still a Marxist, there is something wrong with your heart. You see, so this also should be acknowledged. But those of us in the intellectual world, how we can network, how we could bring, and do a kind of, let's say, strategizing or not, genuine attempt. And this is what I liked always about what Dina and Anish has been trying to do. What should happen naturally. It's not that we are trying, then we are defeating the purpose. It's like saying, I tell some of my friends who think, you are doing devil's work. But if you are following Jesus Christ, then you should allow the devil to live with you. Because if you are trying to say somebody is devil and trying to eliminate him, then you are not acting like Jesus, who showed the other side of the cheek. Or you are not acting like Narayana Guru, if you are trying to bring two people into fight each other in order to solve the problem. So let's look and see, well, this has happened, let's say in Guru's perspective or in domain, in its time, and we can all only individually say, are we willing to put our little bit of share and create and see what emerges? I mean, the fact that you are thinking along that line is what I would like to appreciate. Very good, keep going.
Father, this is Mohanan from Shillong.
Wow, I remember you. Okay,
Now, nice to see you, Father.
Yeah, great
really.
to see you too. Great to see you.
Yes, I have told Father George Palamutam also here, and the others, everybody. Okay, you will be coming on due. So nice to see you here, Father. So you have attended our program, as you remember, no? Okay. See, Father, my question is, the teaching of Sri Narayana Guru is all about oneness. He said the essence of all the religion is saying, try to be a better human being. We all know about it. But how, see, when in Northeastern state over here also, we found, even among the Christians also, the moment you see, or they come to my shop or anywhere, are you a Christian? They ask. Or after that they ask, are you a Catholic or Presbyterian? These things are in the mind of the people. Even the others also, are you a Hindu or these things. How, even after 100 years, we could not bring about a changes in the mind of the people. What you think, how we can go about it?
Yeah, thank you.
Bringing that oneness among the society.
Yeah, I guess that's our thing. The world is not going to change if it did not change because of a Buddha. It did not change. It did not change because of an Ashoka. It did not change because of a Jesus Christ. Then I guess Mohan and you and I can also just be comfortable at one level of saying that we can all have the aspiration, but world may not change as we desire. But that doesn't prevent us from individually, as earlier I think I was trying to say, that it is the in as much as there was a Narayana Guru, and we can't say that somebody did not succeed. In the same way, in our circles where we are operating, to the extent we can challenge to those, even the guy who are coming, what does it matter whether I am a Catholic or Protestant? Are you going to buy it or not? That should be your question. You want oil from my shop? Then whether I am Christian or Protestant, does it make a difference to the oil that you need? So I mean, we can only keep challenging people who come with, we all shift, let's say, from that to the workaday way of considering things. I don't know. I mean, it's a very ultimate question, and precisely because the world is not one, we need to have maybe this kind of conferences.
Yeah, I would like to add one point.
Yes,
See,
sir.
oneness is a very, very big task, maybe impossible. But there is one thing Guru has made us. We all can live like a flower of love with a fragrance of divinity. Then what else we need? That is why Madam Jija is so addicted to this, attracted towards the magnetic power. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we've taken, as usual, sort of an hour and a half. We're coming close to that time. I'm going to say thank you so much, Father George. Like my mother said, I think that, we don't inhabit the same world you do. And so the language and the concepts are not as easy to grasp. And I think all of us are probably going to, well, me anyway, I'm going to have to come and sit again and look at the slides that you presented and listen to you talk me through it. And we may come back with more questions at some point. You may have to come into a second session for us. But thank you so much. It's been lovely having you. Thank you to everybody who joins us. I know it's difficult to take time out sometimes in the middle of the day, but it's heartwarming to come together. I think it's meaningful. It definitely rejuvenates me for the rest of the week. So thank you very much from all parts of the world. Vasant, I know it's like, I don't know, the middle of the night there or something. So thank you. Thank you, Rama, for organizing. Thank you to Venu and Shaj for helping as well. And see you next week. Same time, same place, as they say. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you from my side to one and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really
Thank you.
wonderful. Your father and Vasant and everybody else, Dr. Sabu,
Thank you.
B. George,
Really wonderful
everybody.
session. Thank you.
Really wonderful. Much food for thought. Thank you, Father.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.